Ever since the team at Epic released the Metahumans, it's been all the craze across YouTube and the entire internet. I mean, after all, near photorealistic, manipulatable characters for cinema and virtual production is a big boon in any creator's arsenal. The catch, however, is the moment you're trying to do something with those characters inside of an actual game experience when the whole thing breaks down. Because these characters are by default not built for that. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use them for that. It's just there's a few steps. So today's video, let's quickly look at that and get you up and running. Okay. So this video was a pleasure to make simply because of the release of Unreal Engine 5.6. And the reason it's such a blessing to make is because in earlier versions of Unreal Engine, the process of getting a Metahuman from the Metahuman creator over into Unreal and then trying to rig it, for example, with the third-person character blueprint was an absolute nightmare. But today we're going to be looking at another method, and this method is super fast and super quick, and it'll have you up and running with a Metahuman that is completely playable based upon the third-person character blueprint inside of your game within a very short period of time. Now, I want to caveat this video with a couple of things. I'm not going to cover the Metahuman creator. There's enough videos out there doing that. I am, however, going to look at just activating the plugins and restarting the engine, and we're going to focus straight on getting to the meat of this. Anyway, let's get into it. So, very first thing we're going to do, we're just going to go to the games template. And I mean, you can do this on pretty much anyone, but we're going to look at the games template. And we're going to pick the third-person character template. And with 5.6, you've got the benefit of variants now, different alternatives that you can pick from. So you can get the combat, the platform, the side scroller. We're just going to pick none for now. What we really need is the third person character. And again, you don't need to actually open up a project. You can even do this with an existing project that you can move that in. And we're just going to call, I'm just going to call this Meta 2/3. Feel free to name that whatever you like. Okay, so we've got the project open. This is the new third-person project that we've got inside of 5.6. And as you can see, we've got our third-person character here, and it can jump and it can run and can do all the very basic stuff. Getting Metahumans to animate was quite a mission in the past. Part of this inspiration for this tutorial is from Gorka Aranzabal. Amazing Unreal Engine teacher if you're really looking for some good stuff. So I'm just going to create a Metahumans folder here, and then inside of that, now I think rather just before I kind of step that up, if you haven't set up Metahumans yet, there's two. If you've not worked with Metahumans inside of the UE 5.6 environment, there are certain things that you are going to have to be conscious of. So firstly, you are going to, alongside the install package, you will have to ensure that the Metahumans is installed. It is now an additional component, so to speak. If I go to my 5.6 edition and I go to options, you have to make sure that the Metahuman Creator Core has been installed. If this has not been installed, you are not going to gain access to the Metahumans inside of it, because Metahumans is now built into Unreal Engine. Essentially, you want to go to your plugins if you haven't set this up before, and you just want to search for Metahumans. And then once we're here, we're just going to make sure that we are enabling the ones that we need. So this is kind of the utilities that you need. And then this is the new one, the Metahumans Creator. So a lot of the kind of features to build the Metahumans inside of it, we need this for. So I'm going to enable the other ones, but that's just because I'm planning on making some other tutorials around that and using the same project for future. If you're just getting started, you just need that one. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit restart on the engine. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go into our Metahumans folder. I'm going to right click on this. You'll now see that you have Metahumans. Again, make sure you've got those first two steps covered. Number one, you have to have installed it as an option alongside the engine install in order to get that option. And once you do, you'll get this option. Now, we'll do a tutorial in the future if everyone's interested in it on the Metahuman Identity Solve. This helps us to bring other mesh data in to set up new Metahumans. But we can do that in the future one. For now, all we're going to do is go to the Metahuman character. I'm just going to call it Bob the Builder. and then open that up. And it's going to ask us for plugins. Now, I'm still going to go ahead and do this just so I don't need to worry about it again in the future. And it'll obviously also ask you to then to restart your engine. You do need to enable that, sorry, but you don't need to restart the engine specifically for this. So I am, however, going to go restart and save what I'm building. I'm going to say yes just to kind of reopen what I was busy with. Okay, so now we've got the Metahumans creator inside of UE5, which is super cool. Here's the core stuff that you really need to know about this thing. I mean, there's tons of tutorials where people just walk through every single step. I think that's a little bit redundant because most people have used a normal character editor, and that's the super cool thing about Metahumans and how they're just kind of building that, so you can do quite a lot of really cool things with it. So the more important stuff that you need to know is obviously you got to build your character, you've got to then give it a rig, then you have to download the textures, and once you've got those in, then you can actually assemble it, and then you've got a Metahuman inside of your project. So those are the basic steps. So I'm not going to go ahead and build one with all the details. Obviously, you've got all of those things. You can do the customization of your characters, the head, the materials, the hair, the entire thing. And you can only do this up until when you create an actual rig. Once you create a rig, if you want to go and modify anything, you are going to have to delete the rig and basically restart. Okay, so, and the other thing to note is using these upper functions, the creating the rig, that is going to activate the cloud service, which will require you to re-authenticate if it's your first time with your Unreal or your Metahumans account. So that does get processed in the cloud to help speed things up. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pick a character that kind of works quite simply. Let's see. Let's take Lorenzo. So I'm just going to double click on Lorenzo here. Like, this guy looks like he's got stories. All right, cool, Lorenzo. Good to meet you, my man. And there we go. That's all in. And look, I mean, just a general view, you can kind of modify the lighting on the studio section. LOD 0 is just if your highest quality, and then Epic is your highest quality in your stuff. So obviously, the further you go down, the worse it's going. Not the worst, but it's going to not look as crisp as we've got it here. Because I mean, here, look at that detail. Like, especially if you're new to Metahumans. Although I think if you're watching this tutorial, it's very likely you are familiar with Metahumans. You just want to figure out how to get them to play. Okay, cool. So from here on, now that I've got that, I'm just going to go hit create. The asset you're editing is rig pending preset selection. The model operation requires that the rig is deleted to unlock. Simple rule, so now it gets auto rigging. Now, mine's automatically started this, and I can see the progress in the bottom here, 76% and so on. If it's the first time, like I said, you will be prompted to log in, but then after that, you should be good to go. Okay, so we've got him rigged. Now, if we go here, we're not going to be able to do it yet because we're still missing the textures. So let's go ahead and let's pull textures. I'm just going to grab 4K here. I'm not planning on any major high-end cinematics with this one. Okay, now we've got our textures. We can kind of step back to that. It doesn't auto-refresh. You've got to switch your tabs, go back down. And now we're pretty much ready to go. This warning sign is just to remind you that you can't modify it any further if you want to rig it. So you've got the assembly options here, so you can kind of pick your quality. So again, if you're going to do cinematics, definitely take Cine, but if you're just going to go gameplay, optimized, I think is super fine. And I'll just leave the quality on high. Again, it really depends on what your use case is going to be. So I'm going to stick to that route, and I'm going to stick to that name. I'm happy with it. And now I'm just going to hit assemble. And that'll now get my human, my Metahuman available for me to use in project. Now, there's been this one here is probably going to be the easiest route that you take. In previous times, I've looked at so many people trying to get this in, and the typical kind of approach is where they'll open the Metahumans blueprint character or blueprint class, they'll change the class to a character type. Then they'll essentially start copying everything over from the third-person character because you need a proper static mesh for it. You need animations for it. You also obviously need blueprint logic for it to actually move. But it becomes such a mission. There's literally cases where you get an error from the child component when you actually have to compile it to get that, to find the reference, to re-update the reference to the new mesh. It's an absolute mission. You got to copy the camera and everything over, or you got to set up a new camera of a new spring arm. It's you got to fix the references and the bone structure. You got to retarget the animation intensity. I mean, you're still gonna have to retarget animations, but it is such a process. Whereas you'll see with this one, it's quite a fast one. In fact, it's one that we can do in pretty much 5 steps. Okay, so our Metahuman is now finished compiling, so we should now have him available inside of our project. So now if I'm back in the Metahumans folder, I now have my initial character class. If we go to Bob the Builder, there is Bob. So let's load up Bob, and we've got the typical kind of Metahuman that we would usually have inside of our pieces. Now, so by default, he's pretty much set up in terms of using him for normal animation and cinematics, which is really kind of his focus. You can see he's wired up with AR kit, so we can do facial animations and stuff like that. But obviously, we want to use him pretty much for in-game. So I'm going to close out on this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my third-person character. And I mean, wherever you are, you can always just go to your add feature pack content, and then go to your third person, and you can bring that in so you can get the benefit of that skeletal mesh and everything. So I'm just going to go into the third person, click my third person character blueprint, and I'm going to open that up. I'm also just going to open up my Bob the Builder all here in the same space. And I'm just going to save all, so I've got all of this saved in case Unreal crashes. I mean, 5.6 is still fairly new. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is over in my viewport, I'm actually going to copy everything over. But before I do that, go to the LOD sync. And because if I go in on my character, like not all of his details may be there. Like if the eyes are out or if any details are out, that's usually to do with your LOD settings. So a good kind of standard is just to, like here I've got it basically on -1, which is going to give me a higher resolution. For gameplay, like pretty much a 1 should be fine, and a 2 should be good for like a nice base for your characters. I mean, play around and just kind of see what you like, what really works for you personally. And I mean, you do want to give once you make changes, you obviously want to give time for the textures and stuff to load up. And again, just so you're sure you're not making those changes on anything, you're making it on the LOD sync. So you've got it there. And now the next thing we're going to be doing is I can just go ahead and compile that back down. Okay, so we're gonna basically select everything down here. Now you might want to just open this up when you do that. I don't know if this is always the case, but definitely is in this version. If you have to manually select, it doesn't seem to select everything in the child option. You don't need the root, just this. We're going to hit and copy that. We're going to go over to our third person, go to the mesh, and then just from here on, paste it in on the mesh. Now, if it comes off down like it did here, just go ahead and drag and drop that. And this contains our face. So this is something you want to also be careful for. It's also, I don't know if it's a bug that I'm seeing here, but sometimes when you copy these over, it changes the names. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping the same kind of name style with everything. So we know our root here was actually body. So just go ahead and rename that. Now the face is still fine, and then this was supposed to just be skeletal mesh and not skeletal mesh 1. Okay, so just so that lines up with all of your stuff. So now that you've got that in, we've got our Metahuman in, and we've got our normal third-person character there. And once we've got that, I can click on the mesh, and I'm just going to go over to the settings, and I can pretty much start by just zeroing this out. So I'm just going to hit 0 on these, my location and rotation, just so I can get him down to the base position where he should be. And I like to just kind of compile and get this over because I have a big issue with warning signs. Okay, so the next thing, now that we've got him in position, we're going to go over to our construction script. And this is really kind of where the magic happens. I'm going to just pull out a component called set leader pose. And I'm going to set that leader pose to my mesh. And now that I've got that set up as my mesh, I'm basically just going to take the rest of my components of my metahuman, my body, my face, and my skeletal mesh, and I'm going to use that for the target. So I'm going to unclick my mesh, and I'm going to take the mesh and just put it there as the leader bone. And then I'm going to pretty much just pull these in and just set them each as a target. All right. There we go. And then I'm going to go just compile that. And I'm going to go back to my mesh view. I can already see, and now you can already see he's already animated in the same position. So it's essentially just retargeted in a nice way. So now I'm going to go ahead and click my mesh just so I can pretty much hide that shape of the original character. And I go to search visibility and then just turn off visibility, and then he will be gone. And then I can also go over into the optimization settings. And here under the optimization, what I want to do is this visibility based animation tick option. It's currently as always tick pose. I want to change this to always tick pose and refresh bones. Okay, so that looks a bit better. And then I want to go ahead and compile. Now, obviously, this game mode already has it's set up. I'm just going to go up here quickly and just save all. So that's all updated. Now, because the game mode is already set up with the character, third-person character, and we've essentially now just updated that. If I now go ahead and play, there we go. Our nice little metahuman is now our playable character. Great. I hope you enjoyed that and you've got yourself up and running with Metahumans. Now, obviously, the benefit of this tutorial sequence is I consciously selected a character preset that was close enough to the third-person animations in order for those animations to look fairly natural. Now, that won't necessarily be the case depending on the type of metahuman you make, and that would require custom modification of the rig in order to get those bones to retarget correctly. Please leave a comment below if you'd like to see me cover or go into that, as well as anything else inside of Unreal Engine or its connected software or other tools that work with that. I've been thinking about creating a bit of a Blender series and exploring other technologies and how to connect these, as well as maybe looking at Unreal Engine from a software point of view. If you'd be interested in any of those, also please do let me know. And if you yourself are looking for somebody to mentor with or guide you, or if you're looking for somebody to be that for your company or for your individual brand, please see my information below and hack the hologram. Let me show you how to be a one-person, all-in-one super stack agency.